his presentation. He is the secretary of the Institute for the History of the 1956 Revolution, a partner institution of our institute. Now it is about for Aligiçă's turn. As you all know, he is senior research fellow of George Mason University. He authored several books on the economic change, and we will have a presentation on comparing the uncomparable and the economic life during communism and post-communism.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. I'd like to start with a sort of formal introduction, formal presentation, but realizing actually we're in between friends here, and so I jump ahead and trying to be very brief.
Excuse me, is it possible to hold the mic?
Sure. In this case, let me sit down. So I'm trying to be very fast, very brief, and very concise, because actually what I'm trying to do is to just give you a feel of the research project I'm running together with my friend and colleague Vlad Tarko from the Institute for CADI, Center for Institutional Analysis and Development in Bucharest. I'm trying to give you a little bit broader understanding of this research project, and also about a couple of things within this broader framework, which I think might be of interest to you. The project is interesting because it's not only about Romania, but also it's about the comparative analysis between systems, economic systems. Previous economic system, the communist system, compared with the post-communist system. And that opens up a possibility of an analysis in between systems like the Hungarian system and the Romanian system, or even within capitalist system in Western democracies. So what we are trying to do in this project implicitly is to update a little bit, our understanding of comparative economic systems. In the Romanian context, we're actually building or developing the work of Professor Mulcescu, and especially his last chapter in his acclaimed book that has just been published and is widely discussed currently in Romania. For our friends, this is a book that is trying to set up a sort of comparative framework in understanding the evolution of Romanian economy and society on the long run. Within the larger framework, we'll be focusing on the last 40 years or so. But just keep in mind that this is a comparative economic systems approach, and also comparative historical political economy in the background of this. The starting point is a challenge. We take a look at these opinion polls that are taken in Romania and others by our friends, our hosts here, and we see that usually people think that communism was a good idea. More than 50%. Now, that varies with the circumstances, and this is a discussion in itself. But then also people think that they lived better during the communist regime. Real challenge. Was communism a legitimate regime? Only around 40% think so. Was it a criminal regime? Only around 40% think so. Now there is a tension. On the one hand, we have wise guys like us, people that understand economic systems and history and political economy and sociology and so on. Take a look at the communist regime, take a look at the post-communist regime. It can't be. I mean, look, definitely it's better. Sure, there are drawbacks, there are problems and so on, but it's better. On the other hand, you ask the people and this is what they say. Now, this is a real challenge. One answer is to simply say, look, they are stupid. They don't understand. We understand better. But this is a social phenomenon that needs to be understood. So what explains those perceptions? This is a starting point for our challenge. On the one hand, we may say, look, there are methodological problems. Okay? So, sampling problems, survey instruments problems, framing effects. Or maybe another answer would be that actually what people think is the real truth. That's the reality. And third, and you already know, this is the position which we are going, this is a more complex and more subtle thing. And focusing on that, we might not be able to tell you whether or not the communist system was better or worse than the post-communist system, but we definitely make a step forward in understanding comparative economic systems. We understand the subtleties of the way we compare what's going on in Romania with what's going on in Hungary, or what's going on in current Romania with the previous Romania. Go ahead, but keep in mind, I won't be able to get into details. It's a sort of like an airplane survey of this research, and I apologize for that. My goal here is to challenge you and to start a conversation, because I know that there are many students, and Professor Mulcescu something that definitely will be interesting. I don't go into details, but if you think that there are methodological problems in our survey instruments, you may be right, up to a point. Let's go. Recall problem. Memory springs. You ask people how they felt around 20 years ago. Well, that depends very much on the circumstances in which you're asking people that question. They feel better at this point, they feel worse at this point in comparison with 1 week ago. They project that for 20 years or so. Confirmation-based, biased. People tend to support the views that already have and put the evidence around themselves in order. So these are well-known psychological effects. Framing effects, very important. Framing effects is the way you are framing the question. Now, if you have the recall problem, confirmation bias, framing effect, you have a huge methodological problem. How do you solve it? A suggestion for the next question. Use a split question. Instead of asking just one question, was it better during communism? Ask 2 questions. Divide the sample into random, ask half of the sample the question, ask the other half of the sample the question that is framed in the reverse. I don't know what we'll be finding, but most probably we'll be finding different things in the 2 sub-samples. But I don't want to talk about the methodological effects. Are those perceptions reflecting reality? Let's move forward to see what's going on. Look at the evolution of the buying power. We have 1950 there, we have around here, 89, and look at the decline of the buying power of the Romanians. Let's take a closer look. The 90s. You see, 89, it took like 12 years to get back to that 89 level. Now, this is interesting. Do we really understand how the indicator was calculated in 89? We'll talk about that. But that's not my point. My point is this. We know from substantial research, and I'll get back to that there is an important correlation between buying power of the people and the level of the happiness they feel. In other words, the more buying power you have, the happier you are. Look, this is research done in many countries, and you could see that there is a strong correlation between them. On the other hand, there is a correlation between being free, freedom, and happiness. But it's less powerful. In other words, if we go here, we see that it might be the case that people actually were less happy because they were having less buying power, but that was not compensated by the degrees of freedom that they have. I have given you a glimpse about the kind of reasoning we are applying to our data. We do this again and again and again for indicator and indicator and indicator. Just wanted you to see how we're trying to apply 2 literatures. One literature that is looking comparatively like happiness or quality of life, and then to try to apply to our 2 systems. So again, correlation. The literature tells us that there is a correlation between freedom, between buying power and happiness. Correlation between freedom and happiness. But not sufficiently strong, the second, in order to compensate the first. So that's why we are going in a direction that I think is more fruitful and more interesting. Let me show you what we are trying to do here. Look at this framework. How do we assess and compare economic systems? The first approach here is to simply look at an economic system and concentrate a little bit, and from your intuition to say it was bad, it's bad. It's a subjective approach at an aggregate system. The second approach, which is well known, is the standard comparative economic systems approach. Look at various performance indicators of the system, and we will go into detail on that, and I'm going to show you a little bit of what we are doing and evaluate that. But we could also go at the individual level, and there is a literature on the quality of life, standard of living, and try to approach and understand the system from that perspective. But even more important, and this is the most interesting thing, in the last 15 or 20 years or so, we have an explosion of literature on what they call happiness research, which is at the individual level focused and the subjective perceptions. Now, this is huge, because this is precisely what we are dealing with when we are talking about our opinion pool surveys. Are they a function of what people feel, whether they are happy or not, and so definitely this is a story. So our research is not dealing with this, but it's starting from here, applying those indicators to our area, trying to understand better what's going on, and ending up in this area. So in the last, how many minutes? I have 12 minutes or so, 15 minutes, maybe 12. I've already shown you this. I'm here in this objective estimators aggregate social indicators. Give you just a sample of that. You see, when I'm talking about efficiency, comparing two systems, what I'm looking, usually GDP per capita, labor productivity, stuff like that. Again, comparing two systems, what I'm looking at, a couple of indicators, like Gini index and stuff like that. So you got the idea. We have those indicators, aggregate indicators. Now, again, to give you a sample of what's going on. Now, what happens with the Romanian GDP per capita? Very interesting. Look at this bump here. Look at this bump here in the 70s. This is corresponding to the Ceausescu regime. Interesting bump. And then we go back here. Wow. I don't know, we have to look into this. Maybe there is something into that. And I see Professor was just giving me some positive feedback on that. With economic historians, we should be looking at it. What is it? Is there a social accounting issue? Maybe it's an issue that we have changed the monetary standard in between the two systems. We have a purchasing power parity stuff that we have to work out. So this is huge area of work. But it's interesting. You see, we could see Romanian efficiency going down, but we don't know from where. It might be that this bump is low. But look, it's going up there. It's going up. It's important. Interesting. Now, this is calculated on a year-to-year basis. Look, the fluctuations. Again, interesting to discuss, just wanted to show you, to give you the same labor productivity per person. Look, interestingly enough, the same thing. This time we're calculating productivity, but we see again, starting somewhere when Ceausescu became Muslim, you see this bump that might have, might not have, we don't know, but we have to look into it in order to understand. Why? Because we have to compare what's going on here with what's going on here. Because as long as you don't have a clear understanding of what's going on in this area, it's going to be difficult to make those comparisons. This is the point I'm trying to make, so I'm not going. Land use for agriculture is going down. But look what's going on with agricultural productivity. Interesting. Look, it's fluctuating, but going up. The structure of the Romanian economy. Look, it's normal. What's going on here? It's the service sector, right? It's interesting. It's nothing abnormal with the Romanian structure of the Romanian economy. It's not. I mean, this is a standard trend that shows an increase of services, decrease of industry, and decrease of agriculture. Maybe we should say something about equality. If you want to raise a couple of things, we're trying to measure it in two ways. Because again, this is a huge issue in Romania. Whether or not Romania actually have these disparities and inequality. So you have tried to calculate